We are back on Inside Politics today. Our guest is Lieutenant Governor Randy McNally, the Speaker of the State Senate. We're talking about the 112th Tennessee General Assembly, which just concluded its work. Lieutenant Governor, within a couple of days after the 112th General Assembly left town, media reports from Washington indicate the U.S. Supreme Court is going to overturn the Roe v. Wade decision, which gave constitutional abortion rights to women. Many conservative lawmakers have been hoping and preparing that this would happen, and they've passed a trigger law. Apparently, with this trigger law, as soon as the Supreme Court rules within about a month or so, Tennessee will, all but ban abortion? Is that correct?
Well, we have two trigger laws. The one that was passed in 19 actually would ban abortions. And then the other law that was just recently passed, Governor Lee and the legislature passed, and I supported, it has various steps starting at 6 weeks and going on up to 20 some odd weeks, 24, I believe. But the Mississippi law that they're looking at in the Dobbs case, I believe it's Dobbs versus Women's Health or Planned Parenthood of Mississippi, is a 16-week ban. After 16 weeks, abortions can't be performed unless the health or life of the mother is in danger. And it's difficult to say without seeing the final Supreme Court decision what will happen. We hope that it would be at least the Mississippi law would be upheld. Whether they go further than that remains to be seen.
Governor, is it likely that the lawmakers will try to go further in the next session? Might they decide to block women from leaving Tennessee to go to a state surrounding us, or maybe not surrounding us, somewhere in the country where they can still have abortion rights, so they can still have abortion procedures? Might they go that far? Might they ban abortion pills being given to the citizens in the mail?
Well, it all depends on what the final Supreme Court ruling comes out, and we just have the notes that were our memo that was sent by Judge Alito to the members of the court, which gives us some idea where it might come out, but we still don't have the exact language of what will come out. I assume they'll uphold Mississippi's law, but depending on whether they go further than that or not remains to be seen.
But there could be even more legislation.
Pardon me?
There could be even more legislation coming on this. There's been talk about some major companies like Amazon and Google, which have operations in Tennessee, are perhaps going to pay for their employees to go to other states to have abortions if it's not available in Tennessee. There's been further things about criminalizing this for not only the doctors, but perhaps for the women, maybe even penalizing those who give money to groups to fund abortions out of state. Rather than having lesser controversies about this, at least in the legislature, you may have more.
Well, a lot depends on what the final Supreme Court ruling is, and as far as I understand the Mississippi case, there's nothing in there that would prevent a company from paying for birth control or abortions.
In recent years, Tennessee's passed a number of these laws. The legislature is also being criticized for bills it's passed that they say unfairly target specific groups. One that was passed this year criminalizes the homeless if they seek shelter under roadway bridges or on public property. How does putting those unfortunate people in jail anyway help their situation?
Well, we hope that doesn't occur. We hope that as the law enforcement agencies, and it's really up to the cities and counties to enforce it, just as the state now enforces it on state property, that the law enforcement agencies can ask the people to leave. They can provide them with shelters. I know in Nashville there's a lot of shelters that aren't being used. They could, if they, some of these people actually need mental health services, and we're doing a lot in establishing mental health courts, where instead of going to a regular court, an individual who has serious and persistent mental disease would go to a mental health court, and then they could be transferred to like a regional mental health facility. They could get treatment and hopefully stay on the treatment.
There's also
a lot has to do with people not, staying on drugs that have been prescribed for their conditions.
There's also the issue that a lot of people think the legislature has been picking on transgendered individuals. Last year, the legislature passed a bill that would keep transgendered athletes from being able to participate in K-12 sports in the state. This year, the ban was extended to include other sports, and even on the college level. They also gave specific penalties for education officials who violate this law. Are you concerned that having done this, the NCAA, particularly on the college level, may start doing what they did in North Carolina and remove events and other things that come to the state that have been very helpful to us in terms of bringing in tax dollars, that they may decide they're not going to come to Tennessee anymore because of this law?
Well, first of all, it wasn't just a sweeping ban on transgendered athletes. It was a ban on biological men playing in women's sports, and both in K through 12 and higher education. That would mean that a woman could still play on a football team or a men's lacrosse team. It only prevents, I believe, what would be unfair competition. And we have certain restrictions, like in boxing and wrestling on weight. We have restrictions on the age. You can't have an 18-year-old playing on a middle school football team. And all this is done in a manner to level the playing field. And certainly biological male, in most cases, playing in a woman's sport would be an uneven playing field.
Lieutenant Governor Randy McNally is our guest on Inside Politics. Back to continue our conversation with the Lieutenant Governor after this break.